Long before the invasion, Eldraine was a peaceful place. Ardenvale stood as a headquarters of all of the realm, a confluence where King Kenrith ran his empire. Although this story isn't about the king, or even Ardenvale. No, this story is about a chef who harnessed his creativity to create the most delicious gingerbread men ever. This was Brenard the Ginger Sculptor. There were always witches in Elderaine, from the misty depths of Dunbar to the wastes around Loch Lorent, who were seen to make gingerbread men that would come to life and run into the wilds where their ingredients were from. Brenard was never someone who associated himself with powerful magic, as he was just a cook. Every day as the sun would break the horizon, Brenard would head to the High Market, past the fortress of Ardenvale, to get ingredients to make sure the castle was fed. But on this day, he came across some guards standing around the fountain at the entrance of Castle Ardenvale.
Did you hear about the fairy Oko? He got caught breeding with a human. The village revolted against him.
One of the guards say. All just rumours. Not even the archives say anything about a half-human and half-fairy even being possible, replied the other.
That's not all.
King Kenrith appears walking down from the portico.
They revolted against the mother while the baby was still in its cradle. They banished her to the far edge of Elderaine, past the plains and forests, on a coastline where you can only see the islands in the sea, far from anything else.
And what about Oko, my king?
Oko? He left for some other exotic plane.
How sad, thought Brenard. Although Oko was a threat to Elderaine, the town treated him unfairly. Time passed, and the kingdom stands ruling for years, when suddenly more rumours start around the castle again. Whispers are heard. The knights in the garden report what they had heard. Sire, the noise from over the castle hedge is that Oko has returned, but there are rumours that he is being hunted by someone else.
This hunter, I command that we find out more about him. I will set you on a quest. Travel from the wooded foothills to the flooded strand. Search everywhere for Oko and this hunter, and find out why they're here.
The High King announces. Yes, my lord, says the Knights of Ardenvale. With their swords sharpened, the knights prepare for their quest, to find out what is to become of the realm, now that Oko has returned. This was not for the faint of heart, but it must be done for the kingdom. Brenard watches from a spire, as the knights start their quest, marching over the mesa. He is reminded of Oko's child, stripped from his cradle with no village to grow. The sadness hits Brenard, and he makes his way down from the tower and into the kitchens. He starts to create two little gingerbread people holding hands. This will surely lighten the mood, he thinks to himself. As he pulls the gingerbread couple out of the oven, the noise of the knights returning is heard in the hall. My king, we found Oko near the harbour of the flooded grove. He and this hunter, they were... The massive doors of Ardenvale swing open, almost like a gust from the windswept heaths, trying to blow the door off its hinges. Oko swaggering his way through the open hall, the other man slouched beside him, almost like an animal.
Knights, at arms, prepare yourself,
King Kenrith announces. Brenard quickly hides with the rest of the staff in Castle Ardenvale. Oko appears in the long hallway of Ardenvale. The verdict of his visits was to cause Elderaine pain, as it had done to him, forcing him to be separated from his child, bidding farewell to them as he watched the idyllic evolution of the family he never had from a distance. It made him mad.
Oko, you're a scourge to Elderaine. Why are you here?
Asked the king. Well, king, my dog Garuk and I have come for you. Now witness me.
Guards, get them!
Screams the king. Oko raises his arms as twin-casted magical bolts of energy flow from his hands, striking the throne next to the king, forcing chunks of stone to fly across the room. The Knights of Ardenvale attempt to stop Oko and Garruk from getting closer to the king, but Garruk is too strong. His mind has been taken over by Oko. Again, Oko shoots a bolt of magical energy, striking the king, and in an instant, King Kenrith is transformed into an elf. Garruk tosses the knights trying to hold him down into the walls as tapestries fall from up above. "Garruk, it's time to finish this," Oko says as he walks up to the transformed king. "O king, your illustrious paradise is falling, and no one can stop me, not even your noble knights." Just then, a rummaging sound from the kitchen. "Garruk, go see what that sound is," Oko demanded. Garruk moves his way to the kitchen as the noises get louder. Two voices are heard, a man and a woman, but the words are muffled. Garruk cannot make out what is being said. little pig, let me in," says Garruk as he throws the doors to the kitchen open. Two gingerbread people are standing on a tray at the end of the counter, Ginger and her husband. Their hands bound together as this was how they were baked. Garruk starts to creep forward. "A meal," as his eyes lock onto the gingerbread people, slowly walking forward, licking his lips. The two gingerbread people attempt to run from this hulking man slowly gaining on them. Garruk grabs a pan and throws it towards them, striking a jug of milk right next to them. The jug shatters as milk pours out, covering both of them. "This will be your tomb," announces Garruk. Ginger points up to a shelf. "Up there," she says, as both of them start to climb the shelves, getting away from this brute. But covered in milk, Ginger's hand slips as she's attempting to grab onto the edge of a shelf directly over a boiling pot of oil. The gingerbread man grabs onto the edge, attempting to hold on as his life depends on it, his gingerbread wife hanging over the boiling oil. "I've got this, don't worry," says the gingerbread man. He attempts to pull Ginger up when all of a sudden Garruk's blade splices them apart, displacing their hands. Ginger falls, watching as Garruk picks her husband off the shelf. She cries out, but it's too late. Garruk has eaten her husband right in front of her. She grabs onto the edge of the pot right before she lands directly inside it, emerging from the pot enraged as the crumbs of her love fall from Garruk's lips. She grabs a fork and leaps with all her might directly towards Garruk, attempting to avenge her fallen love. The rummaging of the fight causes Oko to flee Ardenvale with the king. "Garruk, it's time to go," as he commands him to leave. "Until next time, little mouse." Garruk runs out of the kitchen, on all fours attempting to catch up to Oko. The rest of the kingdom finally comes out of hiding. Brenard pops his head into the kitchen and sees Ginger lying over the crumbs that remain of her husband. "My, what a selfless sacrifice," he says to Ginger. "He was my everything. I will avenge him." "You really are the toughest cookie I've ever heard of," Brenard says. "Here, let me make you something." He starts to create a new cookie as Ginger mourns her love. Ding! The oven chimes. "Here." Ginger looks over as a gingerbread horse slowly stands up. Ginger walks over to the horse. "Its name is Cinnamon. Now you can be a peregrine. Go out and find that monster that hurt you." Ginger walks up to the horse and looks back at Brenard. "My solemn purpose now will be to bring glory back to the kitchen. I will ride in solitude." Ginger mounts Cinnamon as it bucks up. She holds the fork up over her head and screams, "For Ardenvale!" They jump off the kitchen counter and make their way out of the massive doors of Castle Ardenvale, following Oko and Garruk's footsteps. Brenard begins to clean, sweeping up all the broken pieces of what was once his perfect kitchen. Just like clockwork, the royal twins, Rowan and Will, enter. Brenard breaks the news to them about their father being turned into an elf. "My deepest apologies, but I could not save the king." "It's okay, we must find Dad," says Rowan to Will. "They must do something." "Brenard, stay here and look after Ardenvale. We will rescue the king," Prince Will confidently responds. They leave on their quest as Brenard waits for their return. Many days pass, and there is a noise from the courtyard. Cheers from the people are heard from afar. The king has returned, Oko has left, and the royal twins have found their spark, announces one of the knights. Everyone was at peace again. The realm is safe again. Until it wasn't. Elderaine was not safe after all. Years passed after Oko left, and the realm had a new threat, the Phyrexians, and their invasion of the multiverse had started. Guards rushed into the castle of Ardenvale with news of this realm breaker that appeared near Castle Locthwain. Only a few days into the invasion, Phyrexian splicers manufactured golems, but not the same as the food golems seen on the plain prior. Brenard watched in horror as the sentinel guards fell to these invaders. Unlike anything they had fought before, nothing stopped their relentless attacks on the castle. "Evacuate the castle! Salvage anything you can!" screamed the king as the invaders kept coming. For every one that fell in combat, 2 took its place. Brenard, being a gilded member of the castle, was evacuated almost immediately. "My king, what is to happen to him?" he asked the guards.
"You will go down with the castle, like all great kings."
As Brenard and the others are being hauled away from Castle Ardenvale, smoke fills the air as screams of terror are still heard from the castle.
"This is from Elish Nord,"
one of the Phyrexian invaders say, as King Kenrith and Ardenvale finally fall. "There's no looking back now," says one of the surviving members of Ardenvale. Brenard, sitting on a tree stump, watches the destroyed castle crumble from a distance. In a mull state, "We are the elders of Ardenvale, and we will rebuild." A final nesting dovehawk is seen flying away from Ardenvale. The kingdom has fallen so quickly to these invaders. Hopefully, they will not take the realm. Weeks pass as the realm worsens. Brenard finds himself making a home among a small village in the wilds, where there is a tithe between the village and a small dwarven community. This small community has anointed a warrior named Torbran to stop the invasion. Others tell of a group of witches who plan to take the realm for themselves. Brenard is not concerned with any of this, as he is reminded of the lives lost during the invasion. In his new life, he studies the bond between the invaders and their golems to that of the food golems made in Elderaine. The books salvaged from the Library of Ardenvale are no help. There must be a way to find out more. Seasons pass, and the Phyrexian invasion is halted by a slumber that put to sleep half the realm. Somehow, Brenard was not affected. Unsure why, he decides to travel back to Ardenvale and look for a reason to all of this. "Under the cover of night, I will make my way back to Ardenvale." Brenard makes his way back to Castle Ardenvale. "Oh, it must be around here somewhere. My dementia is acting up." Just then, a rustling from the trees. Don't come any closer. I have a spoon," says Brenard. The rustling stops as the sound of slicing pierces the silence. Out jumps Ginger and Cinnamon, gallantly as ever. "Oh, Ginger, it's so good to see you again." "Yes, but why are you here? What has become of the kingdom?" "It was horrible. The Phyrexians turned Ardenvale into a war zone. But what about you? You weren't affected by the slumber?" Ginger recounts what happened after she left Ardenvale. Trying to locate Oko, she battled a witch that put her back in an oven where she thought it would be her crypt. She battled a group of crazed monsters in the wilds that were using an altar to sacrifice their own kind for arcane wealth. Even finding birthing pods used by the Phyrexians to spawn their soldiers, spitting them out like a machine. Although she recounts that after the invasion started, she was called back to Ardenvale, almost like her sole purpose was to return to the one place she was meant to protect all along. With a pace of lightning, she jumps onto her noble steed to ride back to where it all began. "Well," Brenard proclaimed, "let us travel together back to Ardenvale to see what has become of our home." Brenard and Ginger travel to the fallen kingdom they both once called home, although now the bodies of guards and invaders laid all over. They were all so heroic, says Ginger. Noise from the throne room is heard. I don't think we should be here at all. We have no protection. This is a bad idea, Brenard says, worried. Don't worry, I have my fork, says Ginger. Footsteps are heard behind them. Ducking behind a suit of armor, Brenard sees them. It's Will Kenrith. He didn't fall during the invasion. And is that Callan, the exiled son of Oko, with him? Confidently, they walk into the throne room as Ginger follows. Ginger, where are you going? Asks Brenard. I wasn't here during the invasion. Maybe if I was, I could have helped. I've gone through my own growth, and I'm not letting Ardenvale fall for a second time. Ginger and Cinnamon gallop into the room as a battle is heard. Swords clash as noises of ghoulish voices are heard. Brenard is still hiding, watching from a distance as spells are thrown around, countered by swords clashing. The noises start to fade as Will leaves with the others, although Ginger is not seen with them. Brenard rushes towards where the fight took place. Ginger, where are you? Looking everywhere for his creation. He can't lose her. He was enlightened seeing his creation again, but now she is gone. Brenard's entire world was capsized when Oko first appeared, and then when the rift opened, letting the Phyrexian invasion through, he lost his home. Now he has returned, only to lose Ginger again. Not a crumb in sight. And with nothing left, he makes his way back to the little village he now calls home.